We are on Facebook and YouTube Live right now. This is Dr. Shealy-Sorin and, of course, the one and only Dr. Norm Shealy.
And we've been delayed a bit because of a baseball game.
Baseball game.
Or some kind of game. And we are ready
Royals,
to talk about wellness, because everything else is illness. I mean, there's only two possibilities. You've either got it well or you don't have it well, you're ill.
Yes.
And if you're ill, you don't function well.
Yes.
You don't feel well, and you don't do anything well.
Actually, just a little interesting statement on that. I've been lately telling all my patients very bluntly, I guess Sagittarius is coming out. Either choose wellness or choose illness, and be happy with either, with whichever choice you have. That's that.
Well, we really can't. I don't wish to help anybody be ill. However, if you are not willing to take responsibility for your health, I can't help you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't breathe, drink, eat, sleep, exercise for you. I can only do it for myself. And at 88 years old, I feel pretty healthy. However, do you feel as good today as you did when you were 10, 15, 20 years of age? That's the big question always. And I can truthfully say that I still feel just as good and energetic as I did when I was 26 years of age. Now, I do go to bed early. Last night, I didn't get to bed till 8:20 because I didn't get home till 8 o'clock.
My God, that's for you.
But I still slept until 4:20 instead of 4 o'clock. And when I get up, I exercise for 2 hours. No matter what else is going on, I exercise for 2 hours before I eat breakfast or before I do anything else to speak of. And then I get ready for work. And that's just my life, and it has been for, well, at least the last 65 years since I finished my training in medical school and all that jazz. So the question is, are you ready to be healthy? If you are, I strongly suggest that you start with your weight. Look at your weight. If your body mass index is over 24, you're unhealthy. You may not feel it yet, you may not know it yet, but every point above 24 makes you potentially as unill as a person who smokes anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 packs of cigarettes a day.
Mm-hmm.
The higher you weigh, the greater your risk of having heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, everything else that I know, hypertension, of course. And number 2, do you still smoke? I can't help you. I can't smoke for you, and I wouldn't if I could. But 22% of adults still smoke. And it was originally the number 1 killer. Now it's number 2. And of course, do you eat a minimum of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day? The average American only eats 2.2. And the ideal is not 5, but 8 to 10. And I start every day with over 20. And do you exercise a minimum of 5 days a week? 5, that's just 5. I do 7. But if you don't do 5, well, people who sit all day have the same risk as someone who smokes 1 or 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And do you sleep 7 or 8 hours every night? Not just occasionally, every night. When you get to 6 or less, you have the same risk as someone who smokes, drinks, and cabooses, so to speak. People who sleep 6 and less hours cause more automobile accidents than those with drugs or alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the basics for health. Everybody should be doing those things. And in today's polluted world, you also need to be taking supplements. Once upon a time, you could probably get by with fruits and vegetables and dairy and eggs and meats. However, the soil is depleted tremendously throughout the world, but especially in this country. There's no magnesium to speak of. And because of fluoride and glyphosate and other poisons and radioactivity. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people I see who have high levels of uranium in their hair. comes out of the air. They're not living on a uranium mine. So you need D3, B complex, vitamin C, and we'll get into all of those in detail. But those are almost essentials. And if you live in a fluoridated poison city, you need to get a filter for your water. I wouldn't work in Springfield if I couldn't have a Berkey filter, because I've got to have decent water. I live on a farm, so at least there's no fluoride that I know of in my water supply. But fluoride is actually the worst poison in the history of the human race. It has reduced the fertility rate in men 72%. If it's not gotten out of the water within 20 years, it will have reduced it 100%. It's that simple already. And we won't have any children. Keep hoping my grandchildren will have kids before another 20 years, because otherwise I won't have any great-grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody else will have any children or grandchildren. So we have to make a decision about where we're going, our health individually. Now, in addition, in today's chaotic, crazy, pandemonium, stupidemic, fakeademic world, you need to detach. If I paid any attention to the news and the internet, I think I'd be stark raving bad.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to detach. And the way to detach is autogenic training and the entire 68 program biogenics program, retraining your brain. Now, let us know when we can get into a discussion of the real thing. The baseball game is going on forever today, I guess. So
Is it, what's the update on the timing on the baseball?
We're on the bottom of the ninth. We've got 1 out and 1 runner on. So they're down by 3, so I'm not too optimistic.
Yeah, we've been in the ninth for 10 minutes or more already, 20, whatever, at any rate. So let's talk about my favorite subject. This morning, I talked with a gentleman from India who's only 35 years old. For 10 years, he has had extremely severe depression, anxiety, panic attacks. He's been treated, of course, with all the usual pharmacomafia crud, and he isn't a bit better than he was 10 years ago.
And it's interesting how across all nations,
Oh, yeah.
it's the same nonsense.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we talked about the fact that, of course, he needs to give up the crazy, stupid, useless antidepressant drug he's on. I mean, they're all bad.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know there are 4 major articles, including one in the New England Journal of Medicine, that state if all the negative antidepressant research had been allowed to be published, the net result would be 0. But folks, the net result is 0, because only 45% of people get any result whatsoever, and none of them are cured with an antidepressant drug, not a single soul. And the incidence of suicide is increased if you take one of the antidepressant drugs. I mean, I wouldn't give it to a snake.
The most common overdoses in the emergency room, guess what? The
Antidepressant
same psychiatric medications that are used to by psychiatry to.
Well, I consider
terrible.
99% of psychiatrists crazier than any person I've ever met.
Well, there is that small percentage that are on the right
Maybe
track.
1%.
Yeah.
And most regular psychology is at
Better.
best life-threatening.
It's better. Yeah.
I wouldn't waste my time and money on it personally. In fact, I wouldn't even go to a conventional school for getting a PhD in psychology. I think they all suck. So I went to a humanistic psychology program, and I had a great and enjoyable time doing that.
And we ended up with a program called Biogenics.
Well, that my entire research was based on what is there in self-control, self-responsibility. What can we do personally? I read over 350 books on the subject, and I came up with, of course, starting with autogenic training, with something I now call biogenics, and we now have 68 different exercises. And that is the foundation for everything to be happy and to tell the world, I don't care how stupid you are. I'm going to detach.
That's a wonderful statement, by the way. I love that.
Well, you know, in the stupidemic especially, it's
Mhm.
critically important. And you do have to practice it for 3 months. You got to practice it 36 minutes a day for 3 months. But after that, you can get by with 1 or 2 or 3 minutes.
Even what I tell people, my clients and whoever is willing to listen, is if you get to a place that you can think of it and you make it happen, even one breath technique,
Yes.
then you got it. It's there with you for the rest of your life. And it's a great tool. Yeah.
But every thought, my favorite statement maybe of all time, every thought is a prayer. Thinking sets in motion spiritual forces to bring about change in body, mind, companions, hopes, despair, everything. You cannot afford the luxury of anger, guilt, anxiety, depression, negative thinking, period.
And I'm going to say something here. Dr. Selye, whom you actually, who was a major contributor from the 30s to 50s to the work, eventually ending up in biogenics. But a lot of that, the gas, not the gas that we think of in general, but the general adaptation syndrome. So that very thick, wonderfully informative book, I've been reading this very closely, and it's amazing how good of a job he does. He did, even back in those times, outlining the effect of stress on every single disease.
Interestingly, one of my favorite quotes from him is going to bed for a week is as stressful as breaking your leg.
Ah, yes.
Inactivity is stressful. Now, you may think that it's restful, but it's actually stressful if you do too much of it.
The body needs to move. Yeah.
And the mind needs to move.
And the mind, yeah.
And not be stuck. And, of course, then let us not forget that perhaps, other than nuclear energy, which is obviously the greatest threat to the world that's ever been created, and fluoride, which is the second greatest, and glyphosate, which is the third greatest, there is the food industry. The food industry is actually more evil than the tobacco industry and the pharmacomafia combined almost, because 80% of the food available is junk, poison, artificial. Fast food restaurants suck. They might, I don't know any of them who even produce coffee that doesn't have fluoride in it. I just looked up Starbucks today. I wanted to find out how much fluoride was in their coffee. They supposedly filter their water down to only 1 or 2 milligrams of fluoride. Well, to me, that is poison in itself.
That's 1 to 2 milligram. 1 of 2 units too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So even Starbucks is stupid, unacceptable, dangerous food, if you can call coffee food in the first place. And I'm not opposed to coffee, 1 or 2 cups a day. However, if it's got fluoride in it, it ain't good for you. Now let's talk about the other things that are not good for you. Artificial, substitute. And on the center aisles in the grocery store, the only thing I will look at is the bottled juice. Now, 99% of it I wouldn't buy. I have to look at the label carefully to see if they haven't added sugar. You don't need to add sugar to fruit juice. And so I will buy apple juice, but unfortunately, 90% of the apple juice available was made in China, of all places. Which that in itself means it's poison. I don't want to eat, drink, think anything from China except fireworks.
Yep.
Everything else is poison.
Well, actually, it'd be nice if fireworks came from a different source as well. But that's we hope.
So, folks, here we are chatting aimlessly almost.
Well, it's a general health and wellness. But the real topic for today, when we're allowed to, of course, get on the radio.
Let's give people a sample of automatic training.
Let's do that.
I do this frequently on my Thursday afternoon show after New York. So if you're not driving, you can do this. If you are driving, either pull over and stop or just turn off the radio for a minute. Don't pay attention. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let it go. And repeat the words in your own mind, not with your mouth, with your mind. I will pause after each phrase to give you time to repeat it yourself. As you breathe in, my arms and legs, as you breathe out, are heavy and warm. My arms and legs are heavy and warm. My arms and legs are heavy and warm. My heartbeat is calm and regular. My heartbeat is calm and regular. My heartbeat is calm and regular. My breathing is free and easy. My breathing is free and easy. My breathing is free and easy. My abdomen is warm. My abdomen is warm. My abdomen is warm. My forehead is cool. My forehead is cool. My forehead is cool. My mind is quiet and still. My mind is quiet and still. My mind is quiet and still. Now, just how do you feel? Doing that brief in my office with patients with hypertension, 90% of the time, it'll bring the blood pressure down. 90% of the time with just that brief. If you do the 18-minute exercise at home, it will work at least 90% of the time long term to get you to allow you to get a state where you can be weaned from the antihypertensive poison you're taking.
I'd like to actually ask the audience, because right now we're speaking to the Facebook and YouTube audience, for anyone who has been practicing autogenics for any given period of time, when we did this, or when you were doing this in your mind, even without the frequencies, were you able to feel the warmth and heaviness in your arms and legs? Were you able to appreciate the heartbeat, the breathing, the warmth in the abdomen, the coolness of the forehead, and the presence of just this stillness and beautifully in the zone of mind? And if you were, then that's the goal, to be able to reproduce it on your own. And that's what the training is about.
Oh, yes. And I have to admit that actually this came from asking people how they felt as they were put into a totally deep hypnotic trance. And these are the symptoms, if you will, good symptoms, that they felt as they went deeper and deeper into relaxation. So that's how autogenic training came about in 1912. And when I discovered it in 1972, there were 2,600 scientific references. Now there are 28,000 scientific references, including a couple by me. And it is the single most effective and most scientifically studied technique in the world for help.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we?
We have about 2 minutes, and then we'll be coming into the show.
2 minutes. All right. So
We will actually be coming into the show in 2 minutes. Okay.
That's wonderful.
Well,
Rob,
for those who've been listening,
let's take 2 minutes to see if there's any comments, statements, questions, anything else of that nature, please. And then we'll get rolling with a thyroid, which is the topic of the day. Finally, coming up.
One of the questions that I've seen, do you know if any pharmaceutical chemicals are allowed by the FDA? And
the FDA I call the Federal Death Administration. I wouldn't trust them to tell me the time of day. So, in my opinion, it doesn't matter what they say. They are evil and fraudulent and totally financially concerned. They are more financially inept than the pharmaceutical mafia itself, in my opinion.
Well, they are part of that mafia.
Well, they are. They're owned by it.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you can't be perfect, but it could sure be better than the FDA and the CDC. I also call the Center for Death for Death Control.
Okay, yeah. Although that's absolutely. The
two
of them
of them are equally bad.
Exactly.
But that's typical of government in general. So, what's new?
About a minute left. Another question, comment, thoughts, introductions?
We had one person asking about, you mentioned uranium in some people's hair that you had seen before.
Uranium in the hair?
Yeah.
Metal toxicity?
Yeah. Do you know anything about, like, in the St. Louis area, is that common?
It's common in Springfield, Missouri, so it's probably even more common in St. Louis. I mean, The best hair analysis, I think, is Doctor's Data in Chicago. That's where I get it done and have for 40 years or more. And it is worth doing, by the way. It's about $150, but it's definitely a test I think every American should have.
And if you have that, then there's a way to deal with that or chelate it, which is important.
Yes. So, again, in taking care of yourself, you have to take responsibility because conventional medicine is good for acute illness and for chronic disease. In my opinion, the kindest thing to say is it sucks.
And I think now we're going to come in. Rob, do we still have a little extra time because of the game, or do we finish?
Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Norm Shealy and Dr. Shealy-Sorin. Get the health answers you need from the creator of holistic medicine and the 2020 Holistic Doctor of the Year. To be a part of the show, call 417-447-1777. Wellness Wednesday. Now, here are your hosts, Dr. Norm Shealy and Dr. Shealy-Sorin.
And I have already mentioned the need for essential vitamin supplementation in today's toxic world. Vitamin D3, a good B complex, and vitamin C being the top ones. And here in Springfield, there's one place and only one place that I shop, and you should too. Spring Valley Natural Foods. The reason I like them is I don't know where to find anything in a store like that. I've been to one of the other health food stores twice. I walked in and I left after 5 minutes of not knowing what I was doing. At Spring Valley, they come and greet you and ask you what you need, and they will find it for you. And they, of course, carry the Shealy-Sorin whole stuff, our 5 bliss oils, our magnesium lotion and spray, our Echo Green multivitamin, and our youth formula. But most of all, they carry what you need at a premium health food store, Spring Valley Natural Foods. And of course, at a real grocery store in the produce department, you will find Nature Blessed Tart Cherry Juice Concentrate. Folks, in my opinion, every American should consider that, especially if they're an average American who eats only 2.2 servings of fruits vegetable a day, because 2 tablespoons of Nature Blessed Tart Cherry Juice will give you 3.7 additional servings of fruits. You'll get up at least to a minimum by just adding Nature Blessed. Lowers your cholesterol, lowers your blood pressure, anti-inflammatory. Tastes smashingly good. I actually take 3 or 4 tablespoons every day because I like the taste of it.
Mm.
That just is a small part of the antioxidants that I like.
Absolutely. And just for the folks that are joining on the radio, if you do have access to YouTube Live and Facebook Live, please watch the earlier part of the show when we talked about general health and wellness. But today, right now, we're going to start with a very important topic, thyroid, holistic approach. And we're going to cover some of the essential aspects. And we do have a little extra time because the game held us over. So we get to talk a little bit longer than usual. So stay with us if you can, and certainly check out, if you can't, the YouTube Live and Facebook Live for complete information. But let's start with thyroid.
Let's tell you, the blood tests today suck. They are absolute BS. Because if you live in a city like Springfield where the water is poisoned with fluoride, you cannot have a normal thyroid. At least conservatively, 80% of people coming out of clinic, and I assume over 20% come outside of Springfield, 80% are hypothyroid. It doesn't matter what the blood tests show because the lab cannot distinguish between fluoride and iodine in measuring it in your blood. Your body cannot distinguish to it, so it makes trifluorotyrosine, whatever it is. It makes a trifluoro instead of triiodo.
Mm-hmm.
So if you live in the city of Springfield, check your oral temperature when you get out of bed about 2 hours. If it is below 98.6, you are hypothyroid. All the contrary to the world will not do anything for you until you get on thyroid medication. And it can help. It's never going to be as good as natural, but it's a heck of a lot better than being hypothyroid. So now it's interesting, of course, that the thyroid gland is not the only one that's poisoned by fluoride. The ovaries, the testes, the pituitary, the pineal, all of them are damaged seriously by fluoride toxicity. The dental profession, in my opinion, is more evil than tobacco industry. It may be slightly worse than the food industry. Fluoride is poison. Now, once you know that your temperature is consistently below 98.6, I won't argue with you, get down to 98.4, but by 98.4, you're unequivocally hypothyroid. And there's one and only one medication that I recommend, Armour's Thyroid. It's been around for 100 years, perhaps. My mother had her thyroid gland removed in 1955. She lived another 54 years taking Armour's Thyroid.
Mm-hmm.
And this little lady who weighed about 102 pounds needed 180 milligrams of Armour's Thyroid to have normal thyroid. But she was healthy until she was 97 years of age, taking Armour's Thyroid. And so it's what I recommend. It's infinitely better than Nature's Thyroid or than levothyroxine, which is false thyroxine.
It's a synthetic version that fails about, in my experience, about 60% of the time.
At a
minimum.
Now, you can buy beef thyroid from New Zealand. It's called Thyrovanz, Thyrovanz. It comes in 100 milligram capsules. It's on the internet. You don't have to have a prescription to get it, but it's been in short supply during the stupidemic, and it's been hard for people to order it. So get your prescription from Armour's Thyroid. If your physician won't give it to you, well, have a consult with us. We'll give it to you if you're hypothyroid. Now, if you are just discovering that you're hypothyroid and you want to try it, you could take iodine, not a lot, actually 150 micrograms average a day, or one iodoral, 12.5 milligrams per week, and Fire Bliss. That will jumpstart some people's thyroid. And that's worth trying, because then you aren't stuck for the rest of your life taking Armour's Thyroid.
And that's a wonderful concept. By the way, let's just talk a little bit about the Fire Bliss and what the bliss means, because some people may know, some people may not know what that is.
Well, actually, I discovered back in the mid-90s 5 different circuits of energy in the body, what we call fire, air, water, earth, and crystal. But it had to be done with acupuncture, electroacupuncture to be sure, but still was required a lot of time. In 2011, I had the intuitive hit that maybe we can mix essential oils, and we've done that. And they've been tested and been proven that the bliss oil, the Fire Bliss, etc., raises your DHEA just as much as the electrostimulation does. And that's true of each of the bliss oils.
The Fire Bliss will also have everything from pineal all the way down to the, entire support of the endocrine system, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, it's sort of the one that I used. As a matter of fact, I use the same circuit to restore fertility in men under the sperm counts under 20 million.
And I just want to address some of the symptoms of hypothyroid. Hypo is a lot more common than hyper.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk a little bit hypo and hypo. The low, which is hypo, usually it's everything. It's a master hormone. So when it's missing, you're talking about sluggishness in everything, absolutely every aspect of life, which means energy, mood, which also involves skin, hair, other issues, and it literally.
Chronic fatigue is the common.
That's the most common one, yeah. Now, hyper is a little different.
Oh, that's nervousness. And
yes.
The blood pressure will go up, the pulse goes up, and that does need to be treated. However, it's rare.
Very rare.
I don't imagine it occurs in more than 1% of people.
Most of it is hypo, and a lot of it, as we said, is because of the poisons and everything else that happens in society.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's also remember, it's oral temperature. I have to tell you, I do not trust these electrical thermometers. They're not nearly as accurate as oral.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to get them anymore that you can measure with, but it's possible. Now, be certain that you consider always taking D3, 50,000 units once a week if you weigh 140 pounds or more. And if you weigh under 140 pounds, 50,000 units the 1st, 10th, and 20th of every month. That's the easiest way to remember every 10 days. And the Shealy-Sorin Echo Green is the best B complex in the world, in my opinion. It's what I take and what I recommend for others. And the Shealy-Sorin Youth Formula is our combination of vitamin C, 2 grams, MSM, 1 gram, molybdenum, 60 micrograms, and 3 to 6 milligrams of beta glucan. All of that is significantly more healthy than just vitamin C alone.
And it raises DHEA.
And it raises DHEA, as does magnesium lotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other thing that 80% of Americans need.
Mm-hmm.
Magnesium in my mouth is a waste of money and time and energy.
Unless you have constipation, in which case it can help you go.
Well, it'll help you. It'll help you have a bowel movement, but it won't do much for your body.
Not really.
Other than constipation.
Right.
So you're wasting your time, especially if you take a combination of calcium and magnesium, which the average physician recommends. They are that stupid because calcium prevents you from absorbing magnesium orally.
Mm-hmm.
Fat does, protein does. Everything interferes with absorption of magnesium in the gut, so it's better on the skin. Oh, well, Ken, I'll be very good, but you could try.
And for those who missed the Facebook Live and YouTube Live segment before because of the delay with the game, I do want to say that the lifestyle, and we talked a lot about that, but just a quick recap because we did go into quite a bit of detail. So if you can catch us on those YouTube or Facebook Live, lifestyle is essential. And just to summarize, what you eat, what you do, how you move or you don't move, exercise activity, your weight, your sleep, how you manage stress. There's all these factors play a huge role, including in thyroid.
Remember, the number one cause of premature death, and I didn't make that up. There was a scientific article published called Premature Death.
Mm-hmm.
The number one cause is obesity.
Mm-hmm.
And 72% of Americans are overweight. And the minute you get overweight, you have increased your risk of every known disease from cancer to
everything.
Death.
Death, yeah.
So it's your responsibility. We can help you, happy to help you, guide you if you're willing to pay attention, and we can either see you at the office, on the phone, on Zoom, on Skype, or even help you do an intensive program at home, a virtual intensive where you will spend 6 to 8 hours a day working on yourself for a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
The most serious problem, that is an excellent way of helping you get well.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, if you're feeling okay or if you have any questions whatsoever about your water supply, and you should, make sure that you have a good filter and that you're not drinking fluorinated water because that's ongoing damage.
And if you live in the city of Springfield and vote for the city council, vote out every member of the city council in every election until they get some common sense. It may take 50 more years, but we only got 18 or 19 years before it's too late.
By the way, the book Common Sense,
yes,
it's I do believe it's available on Amazon and otherwise.
Restore Common Sense.
Restore Common Sense.
And that is, well, one of our most important contributions, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's finally available. And, of course, did you see my note about a new publication called Academia? And they're inviting short publications.
I saw that, yeah.
Well, I think that's worth looking at for anandamide and for the poison system.
I believe so.
Good.
Yeah.
I wanted your opinion because I do like the idea of publishing such important information when it gets available widely.
I agree. Absolutely.
Now is the time if you have a question to call us. Can we open the lines now, Ron? I think the time has come to give us a call at 417-447-1777. Right now, open line Wednesday, 417-447-1777. And if you don't call, we will continue talking, of course, because we like to talk. But we also like to give you advice if you have specific questions to ask about anything, because I don't know any thought whatsoever that is not in one way or another related to health.
Exactly. Now, thyroid also relates to a lot of other medical conditions.
Oh, yes.
I mean, it's just as a master control gland, one of the master control glands, basically, hormone system. It's involved in well, there's many things that it does besides just its own axis. In other words, it's literally in everything.
Well, remember, one of the most interesting things about the thyroid gland is it also produces another hormone that keeps your bones strong. That's important. It's totally different from the thyroid itself.
Parathyroid.
Well, that's right. But
Yeah.
but actually, in the parathyroid glands are attached to the thyroid, but the thyroid itself is responsible. And so, even your bone strength is related to thyroid function.
And if you have little time, let's outline a little bit of the control mechanism, like in other words, with the thyroid.
Well, it's said to be controlled by thyroid stimulating hormone, which comes from the pituitary gland. However, the pineal gland is also seriously damaged by fluoride, and the pineal gland is truly the master gland. It controls the pituitary.
So basically, this fluoride poison is not just thyroid, it's everything.
It's every system in your body.
Yeah.
And it's my number one enemy. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question about the colon tests that you can send in, the fecal matter.
Yes. Well, it's a lot simpler than a colonoscopy.
There's a
right. Well, my question is about I already did the test and it came back as a positive,
Well,
and I was wondering if there's an alternative to the colonoscopy, which is the next step.
Is there an alternative to colonoscopy? You're talking about a blood. You take it's a little card. You get a sample of stool sample and then you put it on the card and then they check for blood. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think there's really
a
substitute person.
Well, there's that, but there's those testing, and then there's also, just interestingly enough, there is a test where you swallow a capsule, to answer your question, if the doctor is able to help you with that, and that capsule looks like a little camera that goes down your gut, and that's an alternative.
I remember.
Yeah, but that's something that has to happen through your doctor, or there are several options, basically. It has to be a physician-controlled, prescribed process, including good follow-up. I hope that helps.
Sure.
Yeah, because colonoscopy is not without its concerns, too.
My biggest concern about that is the anesthesia.
I understand.
Yeah.
I have had one 5 years ago. I'll never have another one. But I came through it fine.
Yeah, so I hope we helped at least with some suggestions on that.
Yeah, I was wondering what would be the best. I've been in health and wellness for 25 years or so and have a pretty good understanding of it. I've been following you guys for several years, so longer than Sergey has been around, and as a partnership and everything. So,
yes, sir.
Okay. The question is, what would you specifically recommend in natural supplements for supporting the colon?
That's a big question because it depends on whether you have any sensitivities. You have no milk sensitivities. At the top of my list is plain Greek yogurt or plain kefir. And you need at least a cup a day of those types of things, probiotics or prebiotics. Now, the other thing that's good is naturally fermented, never in a can, that's stupid, fermented sauerkraut, for instance. That does
Okay.
have the probiotics in it also. Now, if you don't have those access, then you need to take capsules. And the company called Now, NOW, produces one called G as in George, R as in Roger, 8, number 8, Dophilus, Dophilus. That is an excellent source of 8 different probiotics.
Mm-hmm. And
Okay.
I'm going to add one more, something that I've actually personally done and recommended for now about 4 or 5 years. It's called Autoimmune X. Comes from Pristine Corporation, and it's there's actually a book that I co-authored on about the topic. That's called The Code of Life. And
Yes, I did get the book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can get a free download on that if you like. I mean, it's just really good information.
Yes, I got that. I got both the free download and the paperback.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that is one of the best long-term solutions. It takes 3 to 12 months to take full effect, but it's worth it fully.
Okay, yeah. So the Autoimmune X would probably be good for just prevention and or treatment of a minor.
Both, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds great. I was thinking about that too. Have you ever heard of the polycosanol product by a doctor originally from India? But it's made from sugarcane product. Sugarcane.
Mm-hmm.
I know about polycosanol, yeah.
Yeah, and his research. I was listening to his research on a YouTube video, and he went in pretty deep as to how it works and how he found out about it and all that kind of stuff. But that polycosanol, natural, organic, and from the sugar cane juice, I should say. They dry that out and then somehow extract that polycosanol on that. And they have a product that's supposedly, it sounds so much like what it does, what the Autoimmune X does.
Oh, really? Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I haven't personally heard, Dr. Shealy, have you?
I have heard of it. I haven't used it. I don't know it personally, but I know it's good.
Okay, well, I think I might have to give both the Autoimmune X and the polycosanol product a try too, because I like to try things out. Normally when I try things, I'll give them 90 to 120 days just to see what happens.
Exactly.
Excellent. Good idea.
Blessings.
As our Australian friends would say, good on you, mate.
And keep us informed, please. Can you let us know how it goes, please? Thank you. Yeah, we have 1 minute and... I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello? Hi.
Hello?
And keep us informed, please.
Well, turn the radio off, please, or something.
Yep.
Are we on the air?
Yes.
We are on the air, dear. Yep. And
Hurry up, please.
Yeah, we have about a minute, and then we go to break, but we can continue talking afterwards. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. I wanted to ask about, I've been diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease.
Hashimoto's, that's thyroid condition, yeah?
That is a thyroid condition, and I think it is when the thyroid attacks itself, but I'd like to hear what the doctors have to say about it. That would be great.
Yep, we'll definitely talk about it when we come back, and we're going to break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. So let's put on our agenda coming up when we come back from the break so that everybody can hear Hashimoto's.
Yeah, well, it's an autoimmune disease.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. Yep, you got it.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, you're on. Okay, fantastic. Let's continue the conversation. Hashimoto's.
Well, it's an autoimmune disease, and it always causes hypothyroidism. Not
about that. Yeah, you got it.
So you still need thyroid supplementation.
Fantastic.
I think she's gone.
Yeah, hi. Did we lose you there?
Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, if you're listening, then that's great. But if anything, give us a call back. But let's talk about Hashimoto's. Let's continue the conversation.
Well, it's basically, I don't know anything to treat it other than Autoimmune X and thyroid supplementation.
That would be one way to go about it. And if there is ever a situation where you get into thyroid storm or any kind of an emergency, then you do need a physician treatment. That's a little bit more complicated, but it's also immunity, working with the immune system.
Well, that's another hour-long project.
Oh God, yeah, but it's worth it. Absolutely worth it. And actually, now we have another phone call, but maybe we can take that and when we come back from the break, or
the break will be a few minutes.
Just a couple of minutes.
Top of the hour, so that's our longer break.
Okay, yeah, it's a little unusual timing because of the game, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and take a couple calls for the live.
Yeah, let's take a live. Let's talk about live here for a bit. What do we
Good
got?
afternoon. You're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon. This is your friend Bob Mundy.
I recognize the voice.
Hello, hello.
All right, Norm Shealy, Dr. Shealy-Sorin.
Hello, hello.
I'm wanting to find out about something that's called Provision GSH. It has the glutathione. It has the ace-mannan, I guess that's from aloe vera, and something called superoxide dismutase, SOD.
Yep, I know.
Is that something? Is all those products good for the combination like that? Extremely good for the body, doctors?
As far as I know, it's good for the body. Yes.
I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and thank you so much for everything you do for people across the Ozarks and literally around the world, because you have made so much difference in people's lives.
Thanks, Bob. Have a good one.
God bless
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Blessings. Yes.
And okay, we are ready for whatever happens next.
Anything else on the notes, comments, questions? While we still have a little time.
Let's see here. I have a question about. Susan is asking about your vitamins and supplements. Are they made synthetically, or are they from natural sources?
Are our
essentials and new formulas?
What about them?
The vitamins that come in, are they synthetic or are they
No, they're-
natural?
They're as natural as we can get.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Those are the only current questions that we have right now.
Well,
And-
erratic schedule today has confused people a bit.
Just a bit, yeah. And anything else, or how much time before we come back to the program itself?
We've got about 7 minutes.
Oh, 7 minutes.
Yeah, we have our news at the top of the hour.
We've been talking for an hour. I think
We have.
I think it's good enough to quit.
Yeah, actually, unless there's any other questions or anything comes up in the next minute or so, I think we did start earlier, but it was before we could get on the radio.
Yeah, but it's all
So
been recorded.
let's do this. So let's just let's summarize briefly everything, all the major concepts that we have covered so far for people catching up. And do you want to start or shall I?
Well, lifestyle, of course.
Lifestyle, yeah.
You know, weight, diet, exercise, sleep, etc., and supplements. And, of course, thyroid disease itself, which is created universally by fluoridated water. And one last call. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hello.
Hi, Dr. Shealy and Dr. Sorin. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes.
You've been talking a lot about fluoridated water and how it is affecting the thyroid.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, since we've had a lot of fluoride in our water, is there anything that can help us rid the fluoride that's already in our body? Like, for instance, I have a pineal cyst. And you were talking about fluoride going into the pineal gland.
Yes.
Is there any way I can get rid of that naturally, or what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know a chelator to get rid of fluoride.
No, the only thing that I'm aware is time.
And drinking natural, non-fluoridated
Yes.
water, lots of it.
Mhm.
I mean, again, you really do need, whatever your weight is in pounds, you need in half of that in ounces of good water.
So basically, just allow the good stuff to come in and the bad stuff to make its way out. But it's going to take a little time, and avoid further exposure. That's one of the biggest aspects here.
That's the only thing that would get rid of it, huh? Wow. Okay.
It's that bad.
And-
yeah.
Yeah, we're working on getting a Berkeley. In California, it's tough for them to ship to us. I don't know why, but there are certain. So, can you explain the thyroid storm that you had mentioned earlier? Could you explain that a little bit? I don't know what that is.
Oh, yes, please. Thyroid storm. We were talking about Hashimoto's, and we were talking about now Hashimoto's is a very different disease than general hypothyroid, I should say. And what that is an autoimmune aspect. The body is attacking the thyroid itself. And when we talk about immunity, that's a whole new conversation. But working with immunity is the key there, and to make sure that the body doesn't attack itself and basically uses the immune system for the proper use that it's supposed to. Now, what happens sometimes is when the thyroid gets irritated or attacked, it can release tremendous amounts in a short time of the thyroid T3 and T4, and that can be considered a thyroid storm, and that can cause all sorts of palpitations, anxiety, stress, and all sorts of things. Fast heart rate, the opposite of hypothyroid, overfunction to a pathological or bad degree. And so that needs to be controlled with proper use of medications if that ever happens, because it can be life-threatening to a degree. It can be. But once it's controlled, the question is to get to the nature of what is the autoimmune component and to normalize the immune system, such as the certain supplements that we use, regimen. But also my favorite is intravenous ozone and intravenous vitamin C, which is the best immune boosters. And if you live in Springfield locally, we would be happy to have you. But check out in your area who is holistic.
Only at a holistic clinic.
Yes.
Holistic clinic. Okay. All right.
Unless you want to come out here to Springfield, we will be happy to have you.
Yeah, well, we may be considering that soon.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I know? Well, we're going to start on the iodoral because we've been diagnosed with hypo.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to get the 12 point something milligram tablets and take one a week.
Yep.
And then how would we know if we're getting close to a thyroid storm? We don't want to go from one extreme to the other. So how would we know we're not going to be going into thyroid storm issue?
Well, you won't know until it happens. Your pulse gets rapid and you begin nervous.
So cut back, in that case, you definitely want to give us a call.
Definitely, I would be using Fire Bliss.
Yes.
And Air Bliss if you're worried about a storm.
And those things, the Fire and Air Bliss, they normalize. They don't increase, they don't decrease, they normalize.
And they're safe.
Yeah, the system. So that's the beautiful thing about that.
Okay, so Fire and Air Bliss. Got it. Okay, and that's a daily or is that 2 times a day?
Once a day.
Once a day is enough. Yeah.
1 time a day. Okay, great. One other question, if you have time for me.
Sure.
Yes.
Do you have any remedies or any of your ideas on glaucoma?
Glaucoma.
The only thing that I know is there is a biofeedback technique where they actually feed back the pressure from the eyes into a machine. And a very limited number of people do it, but it's been around since the 1970s.
Now, Dr. Shealy, I'm going to ask you a question. This is impromptu, and thank you so much for asking this question. I've been thinking about this for a while. Glaucoma is a very common topic. Would we like to develop an exercise or a tool for people with glaucoma with biofeedback?
I don't know. I've never had I've always felt that's a very specialized thing that I don't want to get into biofeedback with glaucoma.
It could be a little tricky.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. But there's different types. There's acute angle. There is other types of glaucoma in it. Some are worse than others. But go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, so there's nothing in the biogenics that could help with the glaucoma?
Biogenics, let's see. Well, it's self-regulation, so if you can balance the system.
Basic autogenic training would be good for stress, yes.
Mm-hmm. Stress is behind, Dr. Cellier did his research in 30s and 40s. We talked briefly before we got on the radio. And the concept is stress is behind pretty much everything, mental, physical, and emotional, all the chronic conditions. So managing stress is the key to a lot of this. Yes.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate both of you. We really do. Thank you so much.
Blessings.
And I guess then we can say goodbye until next week.
Yeah, well, interesting flow of the show today, but I think we got a message across, I hope.
Have a good one.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.